Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Masters Shanghai is reaching its conclusion. The grand finalists have now been confirmed, but big roster drama going down in various teams that are not there in Shanghai. T1 confirming Stax, after what DRX did just a couple of weeks ago, is going to be joining their roster from now on to the end of the season. What are they going to do with their team? Who's going to get dropped from this roster? What is going on elsewhere? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. This is a teaser for the new map, of course, Abyss. We thought that it might be potentially like a nighttime map. It doesn't seem like that is going to be the case. I guess time will tell. This is pretty funny as Sentinel say a walkout is about to go crazy, but of course they are not here in Shanghai, as we will discuss over the coming minutes. Firstly, from Sadak really on the state of the meta, because we've seen big changes over the last few days. The Neon, major buff it seems. The Clove, slight nerf I think it actually was. Obviously the Reyna, buff depending on the way you look at it. There's been lots of changes to the duelist characters in general. Rey's nerf has been a big one in discussion to try and make some of the other characters more competitive with Jet, effectively. But there's also questions as to whether you need to change the weapon meta to make it more balanced. Sullak gives his thoughts on that and basically says, the Stinger is really good, why would you buy the Spectre? Which is probably fair enough. Now, I think the same thing exists in Counter-Strike, where there are certain weapons that just aren't viable, and I think that's sometimes fine. Like, I don't think there necessarily needs to be every gun should be viable. As long as the meta is reasonably varied, and there are multiple weapons that can be used and bought for various reasons, I think it's okay. Like, in CS, nobody realistically is using the Negev, or the M249, or whatever it's called. Nobody's using the Bison or the Revolver nowadays. And I think that's okay, right? But there is an argument to say that, especially guns that should be used, that are kind of useless, maybe they should be considered to change. Like, no one's using the PP Bison in CS, are they? So here we are in Valorant, and he's saying, look, the Spectre's kind of useless. And also with the introduction of the Outlaw, the Marshal is now pretty useless as well, which I think is honestly a fair analysis maybe. That the Marshal, I used to love the Marshal, would use it all the time, but the Outlaw kind of renders it, unless you specifically have that amount of money, to, why would you buy it, right? Because you just get the Outlaw instead, and then you can ensure that you can one-shot a guy even if he's bought light armor. So the Marshal now is somewhat less used, and then there's also the Ares versus Odin discussion, where he says, yeah, the Ares just isn't worth it anymore. You spend 1600 with the Stinger available on the maps that should work, which are made of paper, and even so, it is much more worth to have an Odin which melts you through a wall, and, which obviously is true, I would say. But, do we want to go back to an Ares meta? I think there's lots of people who would say, I'm kind of happy not to have that anymore. So I think Sadak made some interesting points. There definitely are some things that Riot could change maybe to make the weapon meta more balanced, but is it a problem for the game right now? I wouldn't say it's a especially big one, to be honest, but intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Some sad news to mention here from Wedded, because obviously very notable player in the tier 2 scene at the moment, and as he says, to anyone who's been watching our games wondering why I'm coughing like crazy in my player cam, I got a neck biopsy today and I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer. Now, thankfully, well, as he says, it's a little worrying. I would say it's more than a little worrying, but I think having done some research into this, there's a very high likelihood that this will be able to be treated very effectively, and as he says, a little worrying, still have a bunch of testing to do. I'm 100% certain I'll get through this okay. Have to see what the doctors say. Should know more in about 3 weeks or so time, and this is one of the best TLDRs that I think I've ever seen. So I think having looked into this, it's quite an aggressive form of cancer, but it is a very, very treatable one, and especially for young people, it's very high survival rates and stuff. So, I'm sure Wedded's going to be fine. Wishing the best for him, but I thought I'd mention it anyway because, yeah, that was a big update in the Valorant world yesterday. There was also this going around. I know this is kind of like classic Riot Games activities in many ways, but there was talk on various people in, let's say, the Riot Games world, on the League of Legends side, having, well, found out after several months that they were, basically ghosted by Riot, and then found out they were dropped. And actually, Ryan Sentinel says the same thing. For those that ask me why I'm not doing EMEA anymore, this is what happened to me too. Basically got ghosted for several months about it, and then was like, oh, I guess I'm dropped then. Yeah, thanks for the update, guys. And, well, as he says, you can't ghost people when you hold their literal livelihood in your hand. It's simply unacceptable. it was disappointing to be treated so badly, he says. So I thought that was definitely a shame to see. We also yesterday got some roster updates on the Nitro side, right, with M80. Nitro gone, effectively benched, but, you know, maybe dropped. Who knows what they're going to do with him. And Xander, with Net now coming in, taking up the IGL role. And actually, Imi, who was on that version 1 team with Xander, says, lots of comments regarding Xander and myself saying he was a bad IGL. Xander was not a bad IGL. Him and myself were just quite inexperienced. He has insanely good potential as an in-game leader. 2 years is a long time to learn. I don't know how far I've come since then. I had poor man management back then, something which has come a long way. Could have done better for Xander 2 years ago, and he also knows he could have done better. You live and learn, he will be great, and, you know, Zelsis and Effie's will back me on this, and as Effie says, we were a mess, this guy was alright. So, you know, obviously Zelsis wading into the discussion as well. So interesting discussion there, really, but the feeling is that Xander is going to do a good in-game leading job now for that M80 team. We'll see if that actually comes true. This as well was an update, various small updates today, but a pretty big one really here from EMEA. They're pushing back the start time of all the games 1 hour later to give fans more opportunity to tune into our broadcasts. So, you know, they're just straight up saying it. Now, this means, actually, that the games in EMEA are now going to go on for fans in Europe far later. Often in Europe, the matches will already finish past midnight Central European time, especially if there are any delays. Now it's, you know, borderline guaranteed, I would say, that the matches are going to finish after midnight, which is, you know, maybe not ideal for European fans. But I guess they believe that they're going to get more total viewership because in the Americas it's going to be 1 hour later for them, so those fans can tune in more. It's going to be interesting to see. But maybe it's worth, well, I don't know, it depends on your discussion, but you might think that the EMEA matches should be prioritized for the EMEA audience. But that doesn't necessarily seem to be the way that they are working it. Now, Dapper got a 2-0 dub over TSM yesterday. This is the way that Challengers is currently looking. So, of course, that Oxygen Esports team, they're looking nice. They're 2-0. YFP are 2-0. Fluffy Aimers are 1-1. Turgel Troop are 2-0. M80 are now 0-2. After they went down to Blin, very surprisingly, the other day. Of course, this was Xander's kind of first appearance in the team, and maybe they're going to get better, but definitely interesting to note, isn't it? Xander comes in, Nitro's gone, and yeah, bam, they go down 2-0 to a team they shouldn't really be losing to. So, yeah, it's all an absolute mess, really, in the Challenger side. What's going to happen here from now to the end of the season? I really have no idea. It could be anyone's game here for Challengers this year, but of course, that big result that Dapper was talking about there, 2-0 auction over TSM, and a pretty emphatic 2-0 at that 39, and then 14-12 after a big overtime. Nevera as well, making the move back to Counter-Strike 2, of course. We've talked plenty about Nevera and Scream over the last couple of years, some of the teams that they have been on, but he's officially going back to CS2, so I thought that was cool to see. But also, we have the big announcement here from T1, confirming Stax is going to be joining their roster for the immediate future. So, Stax, a player for many years on DRX. That DRX team had, it seemed, reached the end of its natural life cycle to such an extent they've decided, alright, we're going to blow it up and take a different direction. RB's been gone over the last couple of months. Zest is gone. Now Stax is gone. Flashback is coming back in. DRX are trying to make changes. DRX weren't far off qualifying for Shanghai. They didn't quite in the end. T1, of course, did, although they were on different sides of the bracket. But T1 themselves, they go to the event, they get kind of slapped around, they've decided changes are required. That's what they're going to do. Stax is coming in. Obviously, Carpe has an interesting word to say on it, but this is locked in now. They've signed Stax for Stage 2 of the Pacific, former DRX legend, really, and, well, as Carpe says, your T1 dog from now on. Now, apparently, according to what Data and the guys at T1 have to say, this is a perfectly amicable relationship, and we do not yet have a decision on who is the 6th or not. Effectively, his argument is, this is currently a 6-man team, and we don't know what the starting 5 is going to be. We will have a few scrim sessions with multiple player role changes and combinations. We are bringing in a 6th player, not replacing a player. That is true for now, and maybe they are going to try a 6-man level roster. I don't know what they're going to do. The most obvious change would be Carpe, who's been in-game leading them, really, to be gone, and then, of course, you know, Stax to step in that role. That's my expectation of what happens here. It's also possible that Sire gets dropped. I mean, it's possible. I don't know if it's especially likely. But T1 have enjoyed an up-and-down roller coaster over the last couple of months, right? Of course, they did well at the Pacific, of course, taking down G2-2-1. That got them through. Then they lost to Paperex. They lost to GenG in the finals. They're in the Pacific. They turn up to Masters Shanghai. They get 2-1 by G2, they get 2-0'd by Lev, and they're out of the tournament. So clearly they needed to take a step, and there is an argument to say that Carpe's in-game leading just wasn't really good enough. So Stax coming in here, I think, honestly makes a lot of sense. I'm still somewhat surprised that DRX have made the changes they have over the last few months. I do wonder whether in the long run DRX will live to regret letting a player like Stax go. And I think that T1 have done absolutely the right thing signing him up. Now, I guess the decision is, okay, sign him, and then we'll figure out the rest later, right? Then we'll decide what we go, what we do from here, right? Who we drop, who we keep, and all this. But that is the decision, a very interesting one at that. Here is Boostio, by the way, getting ready to play Team Heretics today. And just as I'm recording this video, that series is about to get underway. And obviously, I mean, this is a pretty sensational picture, I'm not going to lie. Also, we've got to mention, though, the new grand finalist for the event, because here we go, Masters Shanghai, Gen.G just took down G2 Esports 2-0, and this was comfortable, really. Like, this Texture guy was on another level. Game 1 was not even close. The Ascent was more competitive, but when it actually mattered, Gen.G just ran away with it here, right? They won the game 1 of the Lotus on G2's pick, and the Ascent, G2 bought an admirable comeback in the second half after going down 8-4 at the half, but again, a monster map here from Texture. Lakia made some big plays and moments as well. I think Icy seems to only be getting better and better as time progresses for him, but that puts Gen.G straight into the grand finals of this tournament, right? And they have been, like, emphatically winning these matches so far. I don't know who's going to be able to beat them in the grand finals, right? They've got the V2 advantage there, but we've said that before about Pacific teams in finals of these big events, and it's not always worked out in their favour. So much, of course, to discuss tomorrow, just as I say as I'm recording this video, because of the timings there, I have to do it now. I can't do it after this game because I'm in town in a couple of hours or so, but 100T versus Team Heretics, of course, loser goes home of this one, and will determine who plays G2 in the losers finals over this weekend. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.